right, hello everybody. So welcome to today's event hosted by All About Law and Irwin Mitchell. We're really excited to be having you here with us today for the next 2 hours. But before I hand it over to the firm, I'd like to ask you that you please turn on your cameras as it makes a really good first impression. There may be some time for questions at the end of the presentation, but if you do have any, just raise your virtual hand by going to the reactions on the toolbar below and clicking raise hand. If you have any issues throughout, just send me a private message and I'll do my best to help. And so without further ado, I'd like to pass it on over to our speakers today.
Thanks, Agni. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our insight evening into Irwin Mitchell. It's great to see so many of you joining us virtually. So today we're going to be talking about our Birmingham, Bristol and Cambridge offices. My name is Georgina Naylor and I'm one of the early careers managers at Irwin Mitchell, usually based in the Sheffield office, but as you can probably see, I'm currently in the spare room with quite a lot of junk behind me, so excuse the background view. So if we could just move on to the next slide, Agni. Great, thank you. So just a quick overview about what we're going to be talking about today. So between 5 and 6, we'll be going through the presentation and I'll be doing a short introduction to the firm. We'll then be moving on to a session led by our early careers regional representatives who'll be talking about the different seats in the offices that we're covering today. And then our trainees will come on to a session focusing on colleagues and the culture at the firm and our community, and they'll be sharing their experiences with you and talking through some cases or deals that they've been working on. And then finally, we'll finish with a session from myself on our recruitment process and some key dates and information for you. So for the remaining time between 6 till 7, there'll be some networking time and a chance for you to ask us any questions, and we'll be going into different breakout rooms based on the different locations that we're presenting about today, and I'll also be in a room if you've got any questions for myself regarding that recruitment process that we'll be covering. So hopefully this will give you a really good overview and an insight into Irwin Mitchell as a whole, but specifically those officers that we're covering today as well. So if we could just move on to the next slide. Thank you. So some key information is going to pop up and I'll just talk you through these facts and figures about Irwin Mitchell. So we have around 3,000 colleagues in the business, including 240 partners. And at one stage, we have around 100 trainees in the business. And we've had 15 UK offices, and in 11 of those, we take trainees. So the firm was established in 1912, so a long time ago, and originally started in Sheffield and obviously has expanded out across the UK and to the different regions. It is now the second largest litigator in the UK, and it's ranking #1 for overall client service by Legal 500 out of the top 25 UK law firms. So that's it. Brilliant. Thank you, Agni. And then also we've raised over 2 million in charitable donations through the firm's registered charity IMCF, and you'll hear a bit more about that later on in the presentation. And that's how we support our different communities across all of our offices. And we have a charity of the year for each and every office. And again, some more information on that from the trainees. We also have an international presence as we are members of First Law International. So this is a Brussels-based global network of over 85 independent national law firms. And we also represent clients in around 200 different countries throughout the world on a best friend network. We are also proud to be #1 super brand in the legal sector and to be official partner with England Rugby and also the British rowing team. We've also had an 11th consecutive year of growth, which is great considering the current conditions. And for 2020 to 21, that was 276 million. We're what we call a full service law firm. So that means whatever advice our clients need, we can help. And to date, we've helped over 1 million clients. And then finally, we're very proud to be ranked in the Times Top 100 for graduates, and we're 78th in that Top 100 list and 5th place in the law firms of choice that take part in the Top 100. So some key facts and figures there about Irwin Mitchell. If we can just move on to the next slide. So within Irwin Mitchell, we have what we call our client service areas, and this is our legal and operations engine, as we call it. So this is where we have all our fee earners sit and our support teams as well, in terms of providing services to those clients. And our trainee solicitors sit in our client services teams. And as you can see from the slide there, it's split into 7 different areas. So we've got commercial, advisory and disputes. We've got complex personal injury, corporate and finance, court of protection and public law, family law, property, and private client services as well. So our client service areas allow us to provide obviously a streamlined and collaborative approach for our clients, and clients' issues are often intertwined, and we can sell other services into them as well because of our breadth of experience and expertise. So if we've done the conveyancing for a client, we might also be able to help them update their will, or if a client's business has gone through a merger, then we can help them with their employment contracts. And so the different areas that we have, those 7 areas, interact and react to each other. And that allows the client to come to us for all their legal needs, and we can provide it all under one roof, and that saves clients time and money. And obviously you're probably thinking, well, why is that important to me when I'm choosing my firm? But it means that you can get a real breadth of experience when you train with Irwin Mitchell. And we allow trainees to sit across the 7 areas when you're looking at your different seat options, and you'll undertake 3 or 4 different seats over the 2 years, and that gives you a real breadth of experience from corporate to serious injury. So I'm now going to hand over to our early careers regional reps, and they're going to talk about the teams that actually operate in their different offices. So I'll hand over to Amy in Birmingham.
Thanks, Georgina. By way of introduction, my name is Amy Keogh, and I am a partner in the restructuring and insolvency team based in Birmingham. So I've been asked to kind of explain a little bit about my journey to IM and where it all started. So I did a law degree at Birmingham University. I thought I was going to be some hotshot lawyer in London. So I did 3 vacation scheme places, one at Allen and Overy, one at Freshfields, and one at Cameron McKenna. I soon realised the 80 to 100 hour a week working life wasn't for me, and I wanted a little bit more balance. So I did a bit of a rushed application, sorry to say it, to Hammond's, firm now known as Squires in Birmingham. And I decided working out of Birmingham was best for me in terms of family life, being able to commit to seeing friends and family, and also to be able to take part in different sports outside of office hours. When I trained at Squires, I had a great opportunity to work in a number of business departments. 2 years following qualification, the head of the team at Squires asked me if I'd be willing to join him and move to Irwin Mitchell. And we could see the opportunities. It's a growing division, in particular on the business sides, but also we are a true full service law firm. I don't think many firms can say that, to have the personal injury side as well. And often what you find is clients that come to you with one issue, if you deal with it well, then you can cross-refer them across other teams. So it's really helpful to have the breadth of knowledge and experience that we have here at Irwin Mitchell. As mentioned by Georgina, we have 7 client service areas. And during your training contract, you undertake to take 3 seats, and hopefully the final one would be your qualification seat. And that's what we hope, both within the teams, both in HR and also for yourselves, to give you further experience and also that certainty. So now I'm going to run through what each of those client services teams does. So we have commercial advisory and disputes. So this is made up of our commercial team and also our employment team. Solicitors within those divisions work with clients to understand and manage risks. Commercial is often full of a lot of litigation, and employment we act for both individuals in defending claims and also for large corporates in bringing those against their employees. And both of those seats are available out of the Birmingham office. In terms of complex personal injury, we have one of the largest specialist personal injury teams in the country. Our lawyers have helped thousands of people to claim compensation following life-changing injuries. Not only have they recovered millions of pounds on behalf of their clients, but they help to support them in a number of ways, whether it be through medical care, supporting their needs, helping to protect their funds if they are paid out, and helping to support them throughout their life, not only in terms of their medical condition, but also potentially if they need referral to other teams, may it be employment, if they run a business, or if they have any issues relating to their care. We also have the corporate and finance division, where we can offer banking and finance, corporate and restructuring and insolvency seats out of Birmingham. Again, they are based around helping to grow, develop and achieve commercial and strategic objectives for our clients. They cover a breadth of what you would understand a normal corporate law firm would do, and we hope to help clients at every stage of their cycle. Fourthly, in terms of court and protection and public law, in certain circumstances, family members and loved ones may no longer have mental capacity required to make decisions about their health, well-being, about their finances, and our team is there to help. And for those clients who feel that potentially their rights have been infringed, we have a public law and human rights lawyers who can help to make challenges against hospitals, government departments, local councils, care homes, health trusts, schools, local authorities. So that can be for any age range, anyone who feels that their rights have been infringed. Again, both of those departments are available for any Birmingham trainees. We also have an extremely large family law team based here in Birmingham. The family law team help with pre and post nuptials. They can help with divorce. They can help with access to children. They have a range of specialists, but our team here in Birmingham is made up of 3 partners who run a very large practice. Again, that seat is available. There is also the availability to do property seats. So we have real estate and real estate disputes here in Birmingham. They act for investors, landlords, homeowners, leaseholders, and there is occasionally, often, residential property planning and construction are also found within those wider real estate teams. And finally, we have private client services. So this is our wills, trusts and estates department, which help to structure estates in the best way to protect our clients' wealth, for those for themselves, for the future, for loved ones, and to hopefully minimise that tax liability. The team has considerable experience with high-value estates and also international wealth, and understands the challenges that this can bring. The partner-led team in that department is one of the strongest multidisciplinary teams in the country, based here at Owen Mitchell. And again, a seat is available in the will, trust and estate disputes. So those are our 7 core departments. What I would say is, for example, I know the Ministry of Defence seat isn't highlighted as available, but I do know we did have a trainee who worked with the Ministry of Defence team outside of Manchester with remote working, and we're absolutely encouraging a more national approach. If there are teams or work that you're interested, often there can be a bit of crossover, so we can hope to include that as part of your training contract if that's something you're interested in. If you are successfully offered a training contract at Owen Mitchell, the early years team would discuss with you your preference for seats. We always try to accommodate those requests, but of course, those seats are driven by the needs of the business. And also our focus very much is on placing trainees where there are likely to be roles on qualification. Trainees are a massive investment for the future, and we want to spend your time wisely. Over the last 5 years, we have consistently offered qualification roles to more than 80% of our trainees. Our retention in 2020 was 90%, and in 2021 it was 93%. So very much hoping to put trainees where there is availability, but in particular where we can see them qualifying. I think the important thing, and the thing that I really see the value of Owen Mitchell, is that you truly can take seats across a number of practices. So you're not just looking at a business firm or a personal injury firm. You can take a seat across the broad range. I think if you've done a law degree, or maybe A levels in law, or you've done the LPC, or even done a conversion course, what you actually learn on those courses is very different to practically advising the client and the sort of advice you'll be required to undertake. So I think it's really important to get a breadth of experience across a different number of departments, because it's not only the work type, it's how that team operates, it's the hours that team works, it might be interactions with clients, personalities. It's more than just the case law. So I think it's really important that you can see a number of different departments before you decide which one suits you best and therefore where you wish to qualify into. I think I'm going to hand over now to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amy. My name is Deborah Rose. I'm a partner in the Bristol office of Irwin Mitchell. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the seats that are available if you chose to apply to the Bristol office. I work in the serious injury team. I started at IM 12 years ago and was a year qualified at the time, and I've sort of worked my way up through and got promoted to partner just this year. So I originally started in the Birmingham office. So Bristol office wasn't open when I started working with IM, and I did 6 months up in Birmingham and then moved down when we opened the Bristol office in April 2010. And have just seen it grow from strength to strength really from then. We've always had trainees. So from that first year, our first trainee was in September 2010. She's now a senior associate in the firm. We've had really good retention of our trainees in Bristol over that time, and have been really pleased with that. In terms of the offering in Bristol, it really does follow the kind of more traditional PLS options, those personal legal services. So we offer 3 complex PI seats, which are medical negligence, serious injury, and workplace illness. We have offer court of protection and public law seats, and also a family seat. Our family team in Bristol are really well recognised nationally in terms of their reputation, so it's a really good offering. What's really positive about the seats that we offer in Bristol is the connectivity between them. So we all work very closely together because there's a lot of client sharing, a lot of overlap with our clients. So for example, in SI, we have a lot of interaction with both the Court of Protection and public teams and the family team as well. And that's the same for the medical negligence and workplace illness teams. Being a smaller office, it's really nice. Even with remote working having come in, there is a lot of collegiate feeling in the office. There's a lot of working together, socialising together. I know that the junior fee earners, the junior lawyers and the trainees, the paralegals all meet up fairly regularly, certainly now that limitations allow it. So that's really nice because those connections are still being built, although we are working from home. And we have all moved towards working in the office a little bit more, and are very flexible about how we do that from a supervision perspective. So we're very happy to go in as much as the junior fee earners and particularly the trainees want us to. So we're really open to doing that. I won't talk in detail about the different seats because obviously Amy's very gratefully gone through that for us already. But I think she's right in terms of keeping an open mind. I've found quite often that when the trainees come to us, they have a very fixed view of which seats they want to do and where they want to qualify. And I always say, especially ahead of that on the legal workplace placements in the summer, just go with an open mind, go into seats that you might not have thought of. You never know what you might enjoy. Try not to be too blinkered about what you think you want to do too early on. And just see what suits you and what you like, because there's a lot of opportunity out there. In terms of why you should come to Bristol, I think the fact it is a smaller office is a real benefit. It's really positive. Bristol as a city is a fantastic place to live. There's so much going on. It's got so much going for it. So if the seats that we offer sound like the sort of thing that you want to do, it's definitely one that you should be considering. And I am now going to hand over to Sean in Cambridge.
Thanks very much, Deborah. Good evening all. My name is Sean Atwood. I'm a partner in the Court of Protection team in the Cambridge office. So just like to give a bit of an introduction about my path and my sort of career here at Owen Mitchell. I've been here about 13.5 years now. So I originally joined Owen Mitchell, and similar to Amy, I thought I'd be the next big hotshot corporate lawyer. But I left university and found that it was quite difficult to get the role of a big hotshot lawyer without any experience. And so I joined Owen Mitchell as a temporary admin assistant, just sort of filing paper back when everything was paper-based and not digital. And I've stuck around ever since. So I worked my way through the ranks from temporary administrator through to paralegal. I've been through the training contract application process, and I was a trainee here, qualified here, became an associate, senior associate, and then partner earlier this year. So I initially joined in the London office, did 6-7 years there before moving to Cambridge when it first opened. So quite a long journey at Owen Mitchell through sort of every rank that we've got. So quite well placed to talk about early careers. And I've got quite an easy gig compared to Deborah and Amy, because they've explained all of the seats that we have available, so I won't repeat all of the detail of them. But similar to our Bristol office, Cambridge predominantly focuses on what we've traditionally named personal legal services, so helping clients with their personal legal problems. So if you're very passionate about helping sort of personal clients with their issues in these areas of the law, then the Cambridge office would certainly be a good choice for you. So in terms of complex personal injury seats, we do have medical negligence, Ministry of Defence, serious injury, and workplace injury and illness that predominantly concentrates on asbestos and such related claims. And we do have Court of Protection that I head, and our public law team. So seats are available in both of those teams. Similar to what Amy and Deborah have already mentioned, really, it's really important, and I'd always advise people to be quite open-minded with your preference of seats, because you may come into it with a predetermined preference about where you'd like to qualify, but have an open mind. I did my training contract from 2010 to 2012, I think, and some of the seats that perhaps I hadn't anticipated I would enjoy, I really did, and I learned transferable skills that I still adopt today. So you'll learn things regardless of where you end up in the seats, and you'll retain things that you'll use later in your career, and you'll build connections and networking as well, which is fantastic. So in terms of why Cambridge, well, Cambridge is a fantastic city. It's again similar to what Deborah said. It's a slightly smaller office, so you get the benefit of working for a very large law firm with that smaller, more intimate feel, and the connections between the teams are very strong. So because we are a historically personal legal services office, we all work very closely together. So lots of good personal injury teams that work very closely with my team, the Court of Protection team, and public law. So in terms of building connections and networking through your career, you'll work very closely with lots of different people, lots of activities, and Cambridge is a very nice city. In the summer, you can go punting as well, which is always a bonus. So I will now hand over to Laura Daly to explain a bit more about our roles as early careers regional reps. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Sean. So I've been asked just to start off by setting out a little bit about my background. So as Sean said, my name is Laura Daly. I am a partner in the medical negligence team in our Birmingham office. I started out as a trainee in September 2009. So I like to, Sean, followed the application process that all of you have in front of you now. I qualified in September 2011. I was then promoted to an associate a couple of years after that, then senior associate, and now finally to a partner. So I've spent my entire working legal life at Irwin's, and as you can probably imagine, after spending 12 years with the firm and with no intention of leaving, I cannot recommend it enough, both as a firm and also the medical negligence department. So since qualification, I've worked in medical negligence, which is one of the largest departments at Irwin's, and of course it's ranked as a tier 1 law firm in the Legal 500. That means that all of the cases I progress consider the care and treatment that doctors have provided to their patients. And I'm very privileged here at Irwin's to work alongside some of the most talented solicitors, barristers and medico-legal experts that work in this sector. As you've heard from the previous speakers, there are seats available in the medical negligence department in Birmingham, Bristol and Cambridge. So if you have any questions about medical negligence, you can come and have a chat with me in the breakout sessions after this to discuss what, as a trainee, you can expect from this department. All of that put to one side, one of my most important roles at Irwin's is to be the Early Careers Regional Representative alongside Amy for our Birmingham office. So what is an Early Careers Regional Representative? Well, there's a huge support network available for our trainees, both locally in the office and also nationally. Our role as Early Careers Regional Representatives is to support the early careers strategy within each of the offices, acting as the lead point of contact for all of the early careers programmes, including our trainees, chartered legal executives and our apprentices. So as part of the role, we're part of the Assessor Bank and we support the assessment centres each year. So hopefully we will see you all at the assessment centres and be a part of that process. We liaise with the early careers team to decide who should be offered training contract opportunities. We attend seat events that we hold for future trainees for each office. We support the trainee induction for new trainees joining the office. So when you join us as a trainee, you'll become very familiar with our faces. And then during your training contract, we meet with you to discuss how your training contract's going, your seat choices and your well-being. We usually meet every couple of months as a minimum. Sometimes it's with a cup of tea in hand and away from the office. Sometimes it's virtually, depending really on what the trainee wants to do. You've heard an awful lot about flexibility here, and we try to bring in flexible working patterns to everything we do, including these types of meetings. And the idea is that we support you with whatever you require at that time, pulling on our experience and our knowledge of the firm and the people that you're working with, regardless of which department you're in order to support you with your training contract so that you can be successful at the training contract and ultimately qualify with us. So that's just a little bit about the Early Careers Regional Representatives. If you've got any questions about any of that, then everybody that has spoken today is an Early Careers Regional Representative and would be very happy to give you a bit more information about that. So I believe I'm now handing over to our trainees.
Yep, that's right. Thanks, Laura. And thank you to all our early careers regional reps for going through the different offices. So yeah, you're now going to hear from 3 of our trainees regarding how they've been finding life at the firm and the different seats that they've been doing. So I'll just get them to introduce themselves first and come on to camera. So Siraj, if you could just give a bit of background first to yourself.
Hi guys. Yeah, so I started here as a trainee in Feb. Previously, I did sort of the traditional route, undergrad and then LPC with masters. Worked as 2 years while I was waiting for my training contract to start as a paralegal elsewhere, doing insolvency litigation. And I've done 1 seat so far, and I'm currently nearly halfway through my 2nd seat. I did property litigation first, and I'm currently doing transactional work in banking and finance.
Lovely, thank you. Joe, if you could just say hello.
Hi everyone, yep, I'm Joe. I am a trainee in Cambridge, started at the same time as Siraj in February this year. So I did, my undergrad degree was in history and politics, and then I worked in the charity sector for 10 years or so, doing campaigning and policy work for a couple of different organisations. Then I decided I wanted to do law, so I did the GDL at BPP, and then I got my training contract at IM and did the LPC at University of Law, and then I went back into the charity sector but doing legal casework around mainly around social care issues for disabled people. Yep, and I've done, my first seat was in MedNeg, and then I'm now kind of halfway or whatever we are ish through my 2nd seat, which is in public. Though I'm actually based in the Newcastle team doing my public seat.
Lovely, thanks Joe. And Alex, if you could just introduce yourself.
Hiya. I joined at the same time as Siraj and Josephine. I'm currently in the corporate team and I did an employment seat just before that. I went to the University of Birmingham and then have just stayed, so I'm based in the Birmingham office as well. I did a bit like Siraj, quite a standard sort of route in. I did law at uni, then I got my training contract, did my LPC, and then I paralegaled at Owen Mitchell. It was only supposed to be for a few months, but obviously the pandemic got in the way and I ended up paralegaling for just over a year and a half in the banking team. And so, yeah, then I started in February this year.
Lovely, thanks guys. So we think obviously when you're choosing which law firm you're going to apply to, it's really important to consider everything about the firm. So you've heard about the different legal teams, but it's also important to consider what we say the culture of the firm. So what is life like as a colleague, and what happens to the employees once you join the firm? So it's quite difficult to describe the culture of a firm, but these are some of the things that we think demonstrate it. And I'm going to pass over to the trainees actually to talk through the different areas and what support they've found and how the firm approaches these areas.
So I think I'm going first, just talking a little bit about well-being. So I have actually been really, really pleasantly surprised as how much IM really does put well-being kind of at the centre of what we do. And I say pleasantly surprised, not that I kind of thought it would be otherwise, but coming from the charity sector into law, there's definitely a little bit of a perception of everyone's a little bit kind of cuddly and fluffy and nice in the charity sector, and going into the private sector, that may not be quite so much the case. But actually, I've found everyone's been so supportive, and there are kind of organizational structural things which I'll mention briefly, but just on a kind of day-to-day level, managers checking in, supervisors checking in at team meetings, well-being is always at the heart of any sort of discussions around that, thinking about the capacity of the team. They've done a really nice thing in the last couple of years, giving us an extra day, a well-being day. So it's essentially like an extra day of annual leave, which I've got mine's coming up next Monday and I'm very excited. So that's just a really nice kind of gesture to show that the firm recognises that well-being is really important, and that with lockdown in particular, everyone's been working really hard, and it is just so important and valuable to take time out and time for yourself. So yeah, there's healthy mind advocates in every office, and there's a list. You can find out who your healthy mind advocates are, and they're all trained in kind of mental health first aid. So any questions, I would often say that there's people in your team who will kind of you'll know who you can speak to in your immediate team, but there are designated kind of advocates if you want to speak to someone outside of your team, someone with that kind of specific training and role. Our HR team is trained in suicide prevention. We're members of the Mindful Business and Suicide Prevention Charters. So that shows that kind of organizational kind of structural commitment to well-being. We have a well-being hub. So on our intranet, there's loads of resources around well-being that you can access anytime. And yeah, it like I said, it's been it does feel like a really kind of core part of everything that the firm does, which is really nice, and I think is different to how lots of firms operate. And I think I'm handing it over to Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm talking about diversity and inclusion that we have here at Owen Mitchell. So it's quite a big focus, I'd say, and there's lots of different groups that represent lots of different interests, shall we say, over the whole of the national firm. So they support those with, for example, to have a stronger voice and raise awareness of the challenges that they may be facing in society as a whole. And as a firm, I think there's a recognition of a want and a need to celebrate our colleagues and identities. For example, they're committed to the HALO code, which champions the rights of staff to embrace all hairstyles, in particular Afro's hairstyles. Also, what is often a focus is the gender pay gap in terms of when people look at all kinds of businesses. And so ours is one of the lowest in our industry, and we're proud to be the UK's #1 law firm for female partners. So they've developed a policy to help us attract and support and retain transgender colleagues, and our LGBTQ+ networking group was highly commended by Stonewall. So this is just a few examples of the diversity and inclusion efforts that are being pursued by Owen Mitchell. And we have a diversity board, which continues to help shape our diversity and inclusion strategy. so that we're constantly improving this and looking to be as an inclusive business as possible for everyone. We also have training reps as well for both wellbeing and diversity. So if this is ever anything that you want to talk to any of us about, I'm sure in the breakout rooms as well, you could pick this up with any of us. I think Siraj is going to talk to you next.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize I was doing this bit of the presentation, but there definitely is. It looks like I'm doing learning and development. There's a massive focus on learning and development. I mean, in my last seat, even though I'd done, like I said previously, 2 years of litigation experience, everything that I was asked to do, I was given sort of a background anyway. So for example, like a Part 36 is something that you use to negotiate and settle a dispute. I've done plenty of those before, but each associate, as they saw a partner, they walk through it. In development wise, my last seat, we had a specific checklist, and we do training diaries as standard. But what's different to some of my friends at different firms is that we have to sort of upload them and maintain them quite regularly. We have meetings with early careers teams throughout the year and throughout our training. We also, in terms of the checklist and things like that as well, we sort of have to tick off things that we have done and things that where we have our meetings with our partners, what we could do and what we don't feel like we're getting enough of, so we can make sure then we're sort of getting a more rounded experience and getting to try different things in our seats. So that way we sort of have a good understanding, because 6 months isn't a long time to get a full understanding of a whole department, but it's enough time if you sort of have the right supervisor who can guide you and sort of give you a brief overview, but you get a taste of everything. I think I'll pass back to Joe.
No, I'm going to now talk about the charity that we have in Birmingham. So in Birmingham, our charity of the year is Midland Freewheelers. It was the same charity as we had before, but obviously due to the pandemic, there was lots of other causes that I think lots of people were focusing their attentions on. And so we decided to stick with it again this year, just to ensure that we could raise as much money as possible for the charity. So the Midland Freewheelers is a voluntary organisation that delivers vital medical products, including blood and breast milk, to NHS facilities 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So they're staffed entirely by volunteers who give their time to ride bikes, that's motorbikes, drive cars, and coordinate and fundraise to ensure that the supply of blood and breast milk is available where in the hospitals throughout the Midlands where it's needed. So we're hoping that our continuing to fundraising for them will help save as many lives as possible.
And I'm going to tell you a bit about the two charities, the one in Bristol and one in Cambridge. So the Bristol Charity of the Year is Promise Works, and they are a Somerset-based charity who organise mentors for vulnerable children and young people. So mentoring can be such a valuable resource for children who may engage with lots of different kind of statutory services because of their vulnerability or because of their family situation, but actually having a kind of constant trusted relationship with an adult who's kind of outside of some of those processes, you know, outside of school, outside of any local authority input, can be incredibly valuable to that young person, and can be kind of one of the only stable kind of adult relationships that the child has. So that's the Bristol Charity of the Year. The Cambridge Charity of the Year is Tom's Trust, and like Alex was saying, in Birmingham, Tom's Trust were our charity in the previous year, and then we kind of rolled it over for during COVID, kind of recognising that charities need that, you know, need income more than ever, really. So Tom's Trust are a charity that provides mental health support, psychological support to children who have brain tumours and to their wider families. So they basically fund 3 at the moment child and educational psychologists to work out of Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, which kind of is the main, but the only centre in East Anglia for children with brain tumours. And it was set up by a family who sadly lost their son to a brain tumour when he was 9. And the family realised that through the treatment, through all the horrendous journey that he went through and that they went through, there was no actual support for his mental health or their mental health that was tailored to them going through that very, very particular experience. There was no support with how to support their other children, to understand and process the loss of their brother. So they realised that was such a crucial thing for children who have brain tumours and for their families. So that's what Tom's Trust do, and they're really amazing. And yeah, we're really kind of privileged to be their partner. Back over to you, Alex, I think.
Yeah, so now part of our culture is flexible working. And I think it was kind of there a bit before. There were already colleagues that were working flexibly before the pandemic, but obviously now the pandemic's kind of forced our hand, and Owen Mitchell have launched its Flexible by Choice initiative, which basically just means that you can kind of work from anywhere and anywhere as long as the client's needs and the business needs are being met. So it's that we trust each other to do the right work at the right time in the right way. And personally, I think it's been really, really good to have my team. I'm in corporate at the moment, and we have an anchor day, and where everyone tries to go in on one day, because one of the things people have definitely been a bit worried about is, as a trainee, will I be getting the same experience, or will I be like meeting my team or learning in the same way that I should be? So I think Flexible by Choice allows you to kind of have those conversations with your supervisor as well, and you can kind of make arrangements. It seems to depend on team to team in what people have agreed to do, but it seems to be really, really working for everyone that I've spoken to. And it just means that you can work from home or the office, or if the home's getting too much, just want to leave the house and go work from a coffee shop. You can just basically work from anywhere and ever as long as your work's done, I think is the line.
I realised I forgot to say something, which was that the firm also gives us 2 volunteering days each year to do with kind of whatever you want, really. So it's to support the local communities that the offices are in, but you can choose how to spend that time. So it does have to be spent volunteering. It's not just extra annual leave, but it is kind of calculated so that your time recording targets and all that kind of thing is recalibrated to allow to give you those days properly as days to focus on volunteering. So for example, in Bristol, the mentoring charity that is the charity of the year, that could be something that you kind of use that time to kind of give back to volunteering, which I think is again a really nice thing that the firm allows us to do.
Sorry guys, I also forgot to mention something. Yeah, in regard just the support of the community bit, Owen Mitchell as a firm do have their own registered charity as well, called IMCF, which made £2 million in charitable donations, which has made so far, and they will continue to support local communities, which again is just a really nice touch, because I mean, personally, from where I was before, and so again, when I refer to my other colleagues at different firms, it's not something that they really have a chance to do, and I think that ties in quite nice with what Joe just mentioned as well, about us getting volunteering days, so we can sort of give back when we have the chance to.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for going through those different areas, which obviously add to sort of your research and decisions as to, as I say, which firms you might be looking to apply for. So if we're just going to move back now to the legal side of the work. So if we could come on to the first case study. So Siraj, this is back to you again. If you could just briefly talk us through a case or a deal that you've been working on, and obviously there's your notes there. Thank you.
Yeah, so as it says on the slide, litigation is usually can be quite a long process, especially when it gets drawn out all the way through to the court date. So in a 6-month seat, I think it'd be quite difficult, really, especially with sort of the COVID delays, that you can go from the very start all the way through to court and finish off that way. But it's always nice when something settles early, or you can sort of negotiate and settle something outside of court or through sort of ADR, alternative dispute resolution. But one case that really stands out here that I've mentioned, it might not be particularly the most exciting case facts wise, but it's a good example of something a task that I was asked to do from the very start, which was sort of like a task that most trainees would do, which is research. And it finished off. And then I've also had the chance to write an article about it, which again gives you quite good exposure as a trainee. So what I was asked to do is do some research into drafting and enforcing a notice under the Torts Interference with Goods Act 1977. Well, we were instructed by quite a large property group, a local group. The landlord had the tenancy had come to an end, and the landlord had walked into the warehouse and found a whole bunch of machinery. And he asked us, just sort of by chance, can I just sort of chuck it away? My initial response would have been, if I hadn't spoke to the partner, was I don't see why not. I would do the same thing if someone had left a bunch of rubbish behind. I'll just chuck it away. And the machinery wasn't in particularly good spec. It was quite beaten up and quite old. So the partner said, I don't think we can do that. Just do some research into it. What I found was that the landlord sort of becomes an involuntary bailee, which means then they have to be very reasonable, look after the goods, can't just throw them away, be reasonable, locate the tenants and store the goods without damaging them. What I did is then I got that research, and any of the other trainees will tell you here that that's something that you'll be asked to do a lot. Presented the findings to the partner, and then he told me to get the findings, put them in an email, and contact the client. I emailed him and called him on the phone, sort of just to explain it, which again is a good skill that you sort of develop as you train, and you get better at contacting clients and talking over the phone and drafting emails. He was happy with us to start drafting a notice, which basically includes key items like the goods that are left there, where they are at the moment, that they need to come and get them. So then I had to go at drafting the notice. I used some of the resources that we had here, like Autodocs, which sort of generates documents for you, and you sort of just edit the specific points. I drafted it and then sent it over to the client to confirm it. And then while he was confirming it, there was something else I could do, which was contacting agents and auctioneers. The reason for this case was if they don't come and collect the goods, then we can organise for them to be sold by auction, which is something that I've never done before. It just sort of seen it on TV, you know, when they used to watch this BBC One, you know, daytime TV ones when you used to take a day off school. That you have to sort of auction them off, and they came and valued the goods and said that they can auction them off if they're not collected. The client was happy with it. He wrote back to me and said he's happy for me to serve them. And then, as I said there, we had to ensure that the service was done effectively, which is crucial, because if not, then the whole thing becomes pointless. They can just say, we never got the notice, and if we just threw them away, then we'd open up the landlord, who is our client. We'd open him up to liability. Again, we had to get auctioneers and valuers involved. We don't know how much those machines and everything were worth. So the landlord could have been, you know, he could have received a bill for thousands of pounds, and then we'd get a telling off then. So yeah, I ensured the notice was served correctly, sent it by first class post, signed post on delivery, and we also taped copies to the property, just in case they return there to collect anything. We also worked on some practical points, like simple things really that, I mean, they're not necessarily legal points, but they're just helpful. Again, using stuff like weatherproof tape, and ensuring that, you know, we had a list that had pictures on it and the values next to it, instead of just sort of a basic list. It turns out in this case, what happened, the tenants no longer wanted it. I think they were looking to bump the company really. They left the goods there, so then we were allowed to auction them off and sell them. We enforced the notice, got rid of the goods, cleaned it up, and then got the landlord got the warehouse ready, and then we handed it back over to the transactional team to start writing tenancy agreements up again. And currently the article is nearly finished. I know that I've left that seat now, but I've just spoken to the partner about it about half an hour ago. And I'll finish writing an article about the tort and interference notice, and then that will be put up on LinkedIn. So then that way I get exposure for myself to say this is something that I've worked on. This is what we do as a firm, and it also allows us to sort of gain more clients if anyone else is having the same problem, because it's a more common problem than we think.
That's great. Thanks, Siraj. Coming on to Joe, your case study next.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a case study from, it's a bit of an ongoing case that I'm working on at the moment in the public team. So a young man called Ashley, he is 23, as the slide says. He's got kind of various additional needs. He's been at a college that's worked really well for him, a special educational needs college, for a couple of years, and he has some additional social care support. He lives at home with his mum and dad. And things have been working kind of pretty well in terms of the support from the local authority, but his college placement has now come to an end, and the local authority just hasn't put anything in place to replace it. So there've been talks with the family and with Ashley and the college for months and months, but kind of nothing's been put in place. The Ashley and his parents have found a service that they really want him to go to, which is actually run by the same college that he was attending, but it's kind of like a really good kind of continuity. So it's called like a lifelong learning service, and it's with lots of the same staff, which is really good for Ashley because he already has a good relationship with them. He can get quite anxious around new environments, with really busy environments. Lots of day services wouldn't be suitable for him. So the local authority were basically saying, no, this service is too expensive. You have to go somewhere else that's cheaper, and the options they were coming up with were just not at all suitable. So I actually was involved in this case from the beginning. So the inquiry came in, and how it works in the public team is if the kind of local team doesn't have capacity, then it gets kind of sent around to the other teams, and you can pick it up. So this is one where we did that. So it's based in Nottingham. So I kind of spoke to the client, or to his parents. First of all, got funding up and running, got legal aid funding up and running, which is no small achievement. And then got an understanding from them as to what was going on, any sort of letters and emails from the local authority to kind of see what is their position in this. I looked at Ashley's care plan, information from his college to look at, okay, what support does he actually need? And then I wrote what's called a letter before action, or an LBA, which is the kind of pre-action letter in public proceedings. So when you're looking at bringing a judicial review, and which is, some of you may know this, but that's what we call the procedure for looking at whether a government decision has been taken lawfully. So before you apply to court to say, can you please look at this, you're meant to write a letter before action to the authority to say, this is what we think you've done wrong, this is what the law says, this is what you should do, off you go and do it. So we had it, and we asked for a response within 7 days, which is often a little bit cheeky and you don't get it, but we did get it. And they came back to say that they're going to do a review of Ashley's care and support, and also the support he was getting at college. And they're going to, while they're doing that review, they're going to provide interim support at the service that he wants to attend, kind of long term, which is, you know, a pretty positive outcome. We've got a few little things we're still kind of negotiating with them, but Ashley's parents were pretty pleased that he's going to get to go to this service, at least in the short term, whilst kind of a longer term decision is made. And we're hopeful that we'll kind of keep advising them so that that review process is done lawfully, so that the service that Ashley ends up with will actually meet his needs and will work for him. So it's actually been really good, and it is ongoing, as I say. So it's not done and dusted by any means, but getting to sort of see a case from the start has been really, really nice to kind of be the first person at IM to have that contact with the client, and actually looking at the interaction between education and social care law, and they're entirely different statutory frameworks, and that makes it complex sometimes, but it was really good to kind of see how they, the interplay and what the different local authority duties and how they kind of worked in Ashley's case, and also seeing the level of detail. So going through all of his support plans, and there's lots and lots of paperwork that comes with someone who has disabilities and needs extra support, and looking kind of the level of detail that you have to put to the local authority in the letter before action was really it was really quite intense, and I really enjoyed the process of drafting the letter, getting, it's really meaty, really get your teeth stuck into it, and the response we got from the local authority so far has been positive, so hopefully it was work kind of worth doing. That's mine.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Jo. And completely different to Siraj's case that we heard before. So you can start to see the breadth and the difference that you can have at Irwin Mitchell. So Alex, coming on to your case now.
Yeah, so completely different again. So as I said, I'm in the corporate team, and quite a lot of the work that they do in the team is the acquisition work. So that's whether we're acting for the buyer or the seller. The one that comes to mind at the moment is, and seems to be taking up a lot of my time at the moment, is this one where we're acting for the sellers, who are actually a partnership. So that involves a lot of different processes or things to consider than, say, if it was a private limited company, for example. There's 16 equity partners in this, so that's also just a lot of people to coordinate just in general. But I've been involved in this one from the start, which is like really nice to be involved in, because I think when you join something in the middle, you're not quite sure where everything fits together. So it's been quite nice to see the whole thing as you go. So for Diligence, we got to meet with the client and run through which is called a Diligence Questionnaire, but it's basically what the buyer wants to know, everything about what they're getting, really, for obvious reasons, is they want to know what they're buying, but also it kind of it's an ongoing process that feeds into all the documents that you draft. So in, for example, the share purchase agreement, there's warranties and indemnities that are included in those, and the seller will disclose against the warranty, for example, say a warranty that says, like, the seller has complied with every law that they needed to. And then obviously they're not going to disclose against this one, because you'd like to think that your client has complied with every law that they need to. So maybe that was a bad example, but if they hadn't, then they'd be able to say, like, oh no, hang on, this law that we haven't done, but it's all fine. And so that's the kind of what Diligence kind of feeds. And if you're acting for the buyer, you produce a big report and your client will read it and say yes. And sometimes when they read the Diligence report, they go, hang on a second, we don't know if we want this. And so things will go on pause and clients will go away and discuss it and come back. So I think that's quite an interesting bit. And also you get to work with all the different teams. So you'll know about how many employees the company has, or the IP rights that this company has, or the property it holds, or leases, or what banking facilities it has and stuff. So I think corporate's quite a good role for getting to work with like loads of different teams. I think I've really noticed that I'm talking to people from different teams every day and coordinating everyone, and it's a really nice way to, like, I don't really understand exactly everything that they're all doing, but it's nice to, like, see how it all fits together in the bigger picture. And then, so we're starting to get to this stage with this transaction of the drafting the documents and the ancillaries. So these tend to be drafted by the buyer side solicitors, but it's basically just your board minutes, written resolutions. Generally, companies try and make whatever they're selling adopt new articles, for example, so that it just makes governance of your group companies easier. But as a trainee, you'll be quite involved in the drafting of these documents. And I'm not quite sure what kind of level everyone is at and how much, like, they know, but board minutes and resolutions and stuff like that, you learn all about on the LPC and what they're for and what they're needed for. And it's all basically just complying with the Companies Act. And that's what those all record. And the disclosure letter, so that's kind of what I covered when I said due diligence. You say, nope, I've not done this, or yep, I have done this, and it's basically just greater protection for your client. And then on completion, you'll be quite involved on completion in terms of carrying out the searches and things like that that are needed before completion. You'll want to know that whatever is that your company, is solvent, for example, or the directors haven't been declared bankrupt, so they can actually agree to sell the company. And this has normally been done on DocuSign for the last year, which I think is a bit of a shame, because before that it was all printed off. You got to go meet with the client, sign all the documents and scan it all back. And so I think DocuSign kind of takes the fun a bit out of completion. But once that's all done and you've signed and dated all your documents and everything, then as a trainee, you'll do quite a lot of filings at Companies House again. So this will be like changing the directors or registering the new articles, and then producing a Bible of all the documents that can be shared with everyone. So on this transaction in particular, we haven't completed or anything yet. We're just in the negotiation and the drafting stages. But it's quite a complicated one because it's being bought by a private equity house. So, I mean, even the partners say some meetings that they're learning as they go as well, because I think that's the thing. Every deal is slightly different because no company structure is the same, no business purchase is the same. So I think the real varied aspect of this seat is like been really interesting. And this is just one of the examples of something that's completely different. And yeah, like everyone's kind of learning as they go as well, which is fun.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Siraj, and thanks, Joe. That's given us a real flavour for, as you say, the type of work and the different type of work. And also, Alex, on your case study, like you say, interacting with the different departments. So employment, bringing in your previous seats knowledge and having that real estate knowledge as well sometimes. So you can see how the departments now start to link together and why that training contract is really useful to sit in those different areas. So we're just going to move on to the next slide now. Great, thank you. So regarding our recruitment process, and I'm conscious of the time, so we've had lots of information to tell you, so I will go through these slides as quickly as I can. And if you do need more information about our recruitment process, there is a video on our website which talks specifically about our recruitment process. It was a presentation we did a few weeks ago, so if you do need further information, you can get it from our website. But our recruitment process then, there are two different routes that you can apply for our recruitment process. So one is for the legal work placement and one is for training contracts only. So a large number of our training contracts are offered to those who've previously completed a legal work placement with the firm. Therefore, if you can, try and get onto the legal work placement, and it's for 2 weeks and you're paid the national living wage, and it takes place in your chosen office. So you do need to pick an office to apply to, and that's over June and July next year. And it gives you an insight into the firm, type of work and the people you work with. For the last 2 years, we've actually run our placement virtually, and that has added some additional benefits to the process. So for next year, we're still considering what it will look like during June and July. It may be a hybrid approach of the two, some days in your particular office, some days working either from home or going into the office. So we would leave that up to you. But more information about that will come out in the next few months. The second route, if you're not able to complete a placement, maybe you're already working or internal, you can apply for what we call our training contract only, and it's exactly the same process and exactly the same assessments will be done. And so this slide now will talk about the stages of the process that we have in the firm. And so you can see there, stage one is a short online form and a strengths-based assessment. So this has changed since last year. And the first stage is that short online form, gathering some information from you, basic personal information, name, address, university, degree that you're doing, academic results. Now, we don't actually see that information. We still operate a blind screening approach. The reason for collecting it is for data, I suppose, processing. So we can see at the end of our recruitment round how many people came from a non-Russell university, for how many people is it first in their family to attend university, how many people do a law degree compared to a non-law degree. So that's why we collect that information. Once you've hit submit, you'll be sent an email with the strengths-based assessment, and that's a link to a website to various different scenarios on the link, and you're given a week to complete this, and it takes around 90 minutes to 2 hours, they say, to allow yourself to complete the assessment. You can dip in and out of it, so and as I say, you have got that full week to complete it. There is also a practice question before you start the strengths-based assessment. And what we mean by strengths-based assessments, that's designed to understand what energizes you, what motivates you, what do you do well, and it differs from traditional competency-based assessments. So competency-based have generally looked at what you've done in the past, and not always looked at whether you've enjoyed that or whether you can do it well. So what strengths is trying to achieve is what you enjoy doing, and that really helps with your capability in terms of doing a job. And so that's what we're looking for at the strengths-based assessment. So the stage 2 is our video interview. So if you meet our benchmark on the strengths-based assessment, you'll be sent another link to a video interview. And again, there is a practice question, and then you'll go straight into the video interview, and there's 6 questions. So you're just recording yourself. It's not with anyone from Irwin Mitchell. And you've got 2 minutes to prepare for each question, and then 2 minutes to give your answer. And the 6 questions again will be strengths based. So rather than just focusing on your past experiences, they're looking at what motivates you, regardless of whether you've got experience in that area or not. And then stage 3, if you're successful at video, you're invited to our assessment centres, and they'll take place next March. And there's 3 exercises within that: a group exercise, a written exercise, and an interview with our assessors. And you'll also get the opportunity to meet some of the trainees and ask them any questions about being a trainee at the firm as well. Once you've passed the assessment centre, we move on to stage 4, and that is our legal work placement and/or what we call our final assessment and interview. So everybody completes the final assessment and interview, and that's an exercise that you do on your own. You're presented with some information, and you've got to pick either A, B, or C, and then obviously talk to some assessors about why you've picked A, why didn't you pick B, why didn't you pick C, and then a final interview with our early careers regional reps of who you've met earlier on in this presentation. So as I say, you can find out more information about this on our website, and should you pass that final assessment and interview, you'll be made an offer next July to start in September 2024. So just moving on to our final slide then. Very much hope this presentation has given you a good insight with regards to life as a trainee in terms of the type of work you could get involved in, the type of work available in the 3 different offices we've been looking at today, but also a little bit more about being an employee or being a trainee at Owen Mitchell, and touching on that culture point, which is quite difficult to get across on a virtual basis, but hopefully you've managed to grasp some of that from our trainees talking today. We're now going to move on to our networking session, but if you are interested to find out more, as I say, applications opened on the 1st of November, so that was a few weeks ago, and applications close on the 2nd of January, so that's a bit earlier than some other law firms, so just be aware of that date. We do recruit on a rolling basis in terms of your assessments will come out on a rolling basis, but the application will be open until the 2nd of January, regardless of the amount of applications that we receive. We have got some further events as well going on until December this year, and they're all listed on our website as well. So before we move into the networking session, just to explain who's going to be in the different rooms. So as I say, we've got 2 Birmingham rooms, both filled with trainees. One of them, Laura Daly, the regional rep who's in Medneg, will be in one of those rooms, and trainees will be in the other rooms. We have a Bristol room with Deborah and 2 of our trainees. We've got a Cambridge room with Sean and Joe and another of our trainees, and then there is what we're calling an early careers room, and that's where I'll be for any of your questions. They're open until 7 o'clock this evening. You can move in between the rooms. It's great if you can keep your camera on and ask us a question that way, but we realise it is quite daunting seeing lots of faces all at once. So if you want to put a question in the chat, that's absolutely fine. as well. So I'm just going to pass over to All About Law now to move you into or explain a bit more about the different breakout rooms.